Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a kitchen dilemma literally everyone on the planet deals with: leftover rice. Instead of just nuking it in the microwave, or even worse, throwing it out, we're going to explore an absolutely brilliant traditional Sri Lankan method. It completely transforms those humble leftovers into a vibrant, incredibly flavorful dish known as Diya bath. Honestly, it's a total masterclass in zero-waste cooking, way before that was ever a trendy buzzword.
So think about your own kitchen for a second. What usually happens to your leftover rice? For a lot of us, let's be real, it just ends up in some plastic container in the back of the fridge until it gets mysteriously forgotten, right? But in traditional Sri Lankan households, leftover rice is definitely not a burden. It's actually an opportunity. It's this blank canvas for an amazing morning meal. Dia Both takes something old and, with just a few fresh additions and a little bit of patience, turns it into something entirely new and totally restorative.
To really get into how this works, we're going straight to a primary source for this explainer. What we're looking at is an authentic Sinhala text, a beautifully simple, traditional set of instructions for making Diya bath. Over the next few minutes, we're going to break down this exact text step by step. We're translating the wisdom packed into these characters to understand exactly how this dish is built. Because we aren't just looking at a recipe here, we're essentially decoding a living piece of culinary heritage. When we decode that text, the fundamental architecture of the recipe becomes super clear. Making Diya bath isn't just some quick, one-step thing you throw together when your stomach is growling. It's actually a two-part play that bridges the gap between night and day. Step 1 requires just a little bit of foresight the night before. That's the nighttime soaking. Then step 2 is where the magic really happens the next morning with the fresh additions. It's this intentional pause, this overnight resting period, that literally changes the fundamental nature of the rice.
But wait, before we even think about soaking the rice, the text gives us this very specific, absolutely crucial instruction about exactly which leftover rice to use. The source explicitly states you have to leave out something called dankida. Now, dankida refers to those burnt, golden, crispy bottom bits of cooked rice that stick to the pan. And yeah, I know, those crispy bits are usually fought over at the dinner table because they are so delicious. But the text is super clear. They have absolutely no place in Diya bath. For this specific preparation, you only want the soft, unburnt grains to make sure you get the perfect texture during the soaking process.
Okay, so once you've got your soft leftover rice sorted out, the nighttime prep is incredibly straightforward. The source tells us to take that rice, place it in a pot, add water, cover it, and then, this is key, leave it right on the stove overnight. You don't shove it in the fridge, you literally just leave it covered, sitting right there on the stovetop. This overnight resting in water is the defining characteristic of the whole dish. It softens and conditions the rice, setting the perfect stage for the flavors we're going to build the next morning. All right, fast forward. The sun is up and it's time to bring this dish to life. The source text outlines this vibrant lineup of fresh morning ingredients to add to our soaked rice. We're talking finely chopped green chilies, known in Sinhala as amu miris, and finely chopped red onions, or ratulunu. To that really sharp, fresh base, we add acidity with lime, seasoning with salt, and finally a rich creaminess with coconut milk. Just notice the incredible balance here. You've got heat, sharpness, and this smooth, cooling comfort all coming together perfectly. But the text doesn't stop there. To make it even tastier, it drops a very specific flavor secret. It instructs the cook to add exactly 3 dried chilies, broken into small pieces. But, and this is a big but, you don't just toss them in raw. They absolutely must be roasted first. This step is a total game changer for the flavor profile. By taking dry chilies and hitting them with heat, you release these smoky, deeply savory oils that contrast beautifully with all those fresh ingredients we just talked about. So how exactly do you roast those 3 dried chilies? Well, the source mentions this brilliant rustic tool, the ikel, or iratua. An ikel is basically the stiff central vein of a coconut leaf. In traditional Sri Lankan kitchens, it's used for dozens of things. And right here, it works as a natural, perfectly designed skewer. You just skewer the dried chilies onto the ikel and hold them right over an open flame. I mean, just imagine the crackle, that sudden burst of smoky aroma filling your kitchen as the skins blister. It's a whole sensory experience that brings a really distinct, toasted depth to the final dish. Now for the grand finale. The final step described in the text is bringing the whole shebang together. You take that pot of overnight soaked rice, add your fiery roasted dried chilies, the fresh green chilies, the crisp red onions, that squeeze of lime, the salt, and of course, the rich coconut milk. The instruction: mix it all thoroughly. You want to make sure every single grain of rice is perfectly coated in that complex, spicy, tangy, and creamy broth before you finally dig in. As we get near the end of the text, there's this really beautiful grounding shift in the narrative. The author adds a cultural footnote stating, mothers in various parts of Sri Lanka prepare this in different ways. I absolutely love this line. It acknowledges that, sure, we just walk through a very specific set of instructions, but Diya bath is a living, breathing tradition. It honors maternal wisdom passed down through generations. It reminds us that a recipe isn't some rigid law, it's a foundation. Depending on what region you're in, or honestly just what's growing in the garden that morning, the preparation uniquely adapts and evolves.
And that brings us to the final thought of the source text and of our explainer today. The text ends with a super direct invitation. Share your experiences with me. So I want to pass that exact invitation right on to you. How do you handle leftover rice in your own culture? Or if you're already familiar with Diya bath, how does your family make it? Take a look at the simple everyday ingredients sitting quietly in your kitchen right now. Instead of seeing leftovers as just an afterthought, what if you saw them as the beginning of something truly extraordinary?